As of right now, if I'm being honest with my expectations, I'm guessing it'll probably be in my top 3. I don't see it topping Dark Knight for me, nor do I see it topping Batman Begins, but I can see it topping Rises and Phantasm maybe. The Batman is phenomenal. The Batman is wonderful. The Batman is sincere. The Batman is kind of perfect. As I'm sure y'all know, The Batman was my most anticipated film this year. Honestly, it's the film I've been the most excited for a number of years. I've been waiting a very long time for this movie. It's been 10 years since the last solo Batman movie. But now we finally have another one, and I'm happy to say it is the perfect Batman film. It's not just good, it's not just great, it's not just perfect, it's a masterpiece. There's so much I have to say about this film, I don't even know where to begin. Do I begin with the wonderful screenplay, the phenomenal filmmaking, the amazing execution? Or maybe I should start off with Matt Reeves. I love Matt Reeves. He's a phenomenal filmmaker that I have a lot of respect for. He was the perfect director and writer to pick for this movie. You can tell that deep down he's a real Batman fan. Every shot, every second, every direction, you feel his love for Batman. It's a key part in why this movie works so well, because no matter what Ben Shapiro tells you,
Matt Reeves, who's credited as both a director and a writer on the film, he does not like Batman, and I can't get over this. How do you give $150 million to a dude to make a movie about Batman when he clearly does not like Batman? When he thinks that Batman is bad?
Interesting. No.
Matt Reeves genuinely loves Batman as a character, and you can tell he has so much passion for what he's doing.
Always had an idea of how you wanted to tell this story and what you wanted to do with it?
No. I mean, the thing is, I never thought I would be making a Batman movie. It's one of these things where I love Batman from when I was a kid. Batman '66. Adam West was my Batman when I was a kid, and I had dolls, and I had the Corgi metal car, the Futura. So I love Batman. And then when they started doing big screen movies, when Burton's came out, and then later with Schumacher and then Nolan's, I always loved the movies. And so I just thought, okay, well, that's just something I'm a fan of. And then when they approached me, I was like, wow, well, that is incredibly thrilling, but also really scary, because the movies are great. And so how can you set about to do something different? And I think, to me, in reading the comics and knowing that the character was created in the vein of sort of the world's greatest detective, I thought, well, that's one thing we could do, is do a kind of thriller, to do a kind of psychological horror movie, a serial killer movie, in addition to doing all the things that a Batman movie has to do. You can't not have like the spectacle of a great Batmobile chase and all of that. But I thought that there was a way to lean in that way to something that could give us something really fresh. And so hopefully that's what we've done.
This movie wasn't just a typical superhero movie you see every year. Like the Dark Knight trilogy, this is a Matt Reeves movie. This is his vision, 100% untouched.
I have to thank Warner Brothers for respecting the vision of the movie. And the movie is, look, it's so many things. Obviously, it's a propulsive spectacle, it's a horror movie, but it's also a very intricate detective story. And I wanted to do the world's greatest detective story for Batman because it hadn't been done to the degree that I wanted to in a movie, and they let us do it. Warner Brothers let me see the movie through the way that they did, and that it's the movie. This is the cut. There's not some cut that's waiting to be seen. There is a scene, a couple scenes that aren't in the movie because I didn't think that they worked in the movie to make the best movie, but they're scenes that I love, and after the movie is out, I will absolutely want to release these scenes because I think they're really cool to see.
This is a Matt Reeves movie, not full of studio notes. Studio didn't even interfere with it. It's Matt Reeves' film. The film isn't styleless like most MCU films these days. It's an actual style. You can feel his passion, how much he cares in every single frame. You can see this wasn't just him collecting a paycheck, he actually cares about what he's doing. There are so many cool small touches. There's a moment in the third act where two Riddler goons are about to shoot Batman. Batman dodges, and as he does, one of the bullets is about to go into a goon's face, and he moves his hand in front of it so that the bullet doesn't kill the goon, and instead the goon just falls back. There's so many things like this that Matt Reeves put so much thought into. At first, I thought it was a bit of a plot hole that Batman didn't, get seriously disfigured from the explosion after Coulson died. But then I went back and realized that Batman actually covers his face with his hands. And normally that wouldn't matter, but he's wearing bulletproof comic book armor, so I'm willing to give that a bit of a pass. You can actually see Riddler in his house with his light on for a lot of the movie. Yeah, I'm not even kidding. Go back and rewatch the movie and look at the club scenes. Any shot that goes from the front of the club where Riddler's house is, you can see the light on with him and his binoculars waiting for Falcone to go into the light the entire movie. I'm not even joking. This movie is so freaking well thought out, man. This is cinema. It's insane how much thought and effort Matt Reeves put into this movie. And all those thoughts and efforts are extremely visible in the... Fun fact, did you know that the Batman has about the same budget as Black Widow? Black freaking Widow. Try to spot the difference. The Batman might honestly be the best looking comic book film of all time. Which is hard to say because there's lots of fantastic looking comic book films out there. Joker, the Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, the Amazing Spider-Man duology, the Burton Batman films, the Dark Knight trilogy, Logan, the Guardians of the Galaxy films, the Suicide Squad, Watchmen, 2/3 of Batman v Superman, and many, many more. There are several very good-looking comic book movies, but I think the Batman honestly might be the best looking I've ever seen. I mean, just look at these amazing, wonderful shots. There are so many wonderful shots, lots of shots closing in on a person's face to see what they're feeling. That truly allows actors to convey what they're feeling without even talking. Robert Pattinson is a god at this, by the way. There's so many wonderful POV shots in this movie as well. The first scene in the movie is Riddler's perspective while looking and stalking the mayor. We get to see everything literally through his eyes. There are so many wonderful shots from different perspectives, so many shots closing in on a character's face to allow the actor to truly act. Because of this, we get to really feel what the characters are feeling. Every punch Batman delivers, we feel the impact of that punch. Every shot Batman takes, we feel that shot, we feel the impact of it, we feel why he's injured. Towards the end, there's a great use of cinematography. We have Batman and Catwoman's last scene where they start to get closer, and as they get closer, the camera kind of closes in on their faces. Then Catwoman says he's already taken and that he's there for Gotham. And then it goes back to a wide angle, and then we follow the two on the motorcycle ride, and then they literally go separate ways. She leaves Gotham, he heads towards the bat signal. There are lots of great uses like that throughout the movie. The cinematography in general is fantastic. The film honestly is the most visually compelling comic book movie I've probably ever seen. Before this movie, I probably would have said the most visually compelling Batman movie was Batman Returns, followed by The Dark Knight. Yeah, don't get me wrong, the fight scenes of the Dark Knight trilogy are certainly lacking with the exception of a few select sequences. But the actual visuals in the Dark Knight trilogy are phenomenal. But this movie, it's just so much better looking. It looks phenomenal. I mean, I think all the Batman movies have a unique style and they all look great, but this one just looks the best. It looks so good. The Batmobile chase is phenomenal. It is a great use. It's a great example of the phenomenal filmmaking in this film. I love the way that scene was shot. I'm not sure if it's my favorite Batmobile chase. I really like the one from Batman Begins. It's hard to compare because they both serve different purposes. Batman Begins has a lot more urgency behind it because there you have to escape Arkham and also try to save Rachel Dawes while escaping the police. So there's more stakes. The stakes are much higher, and there's a bigger sense of urgency there. While with this Batmobile chase, it's just trying to find the rat and capturing Penguin because Batman thinks he's the rat. Both are great and phenomenal, but one clearly has a higher sense of urgency than the other. Still though, I adore both of them. They're both pretty close to tied for number one. And in terms of how they're shot, the Batman one is easily much better. I love the music behind this chase. It's actually fantastic and maybe my favorite piece of music from Michael Giacchino in this movie. It's one of the many scenes that makes Batman feel like a force of nature, more than an actual human. Something else the filmmaking captured so well through the aesthetics was making Batman feel like a force of nature. A lot of that goes to writing too, but a lot of it's also on the filmmaking. Batman feels like not even a human. He feels like a force of nature getting ready to pounce. You understand the criminal's fear. You feel the fear of Batman really for the first time. This is an idea that Gotham tried to do, but didn't exactly do it very well. In the series finale of Gotham, they tried to make Batman feel like a force of nature too, because in the series finale, it was a time jump to where Batman first comes to Gotham, and they tried to capture the mythic, scary aspect of Batman, where he's a rumor, he's a myth, where people are terrified of him, but they didn't execute it very well. Like in this movie, Batman's there, but Bruce Wayne really isn't. In fact, in the Gotham finale, Bruce Wayne isn't there at all. However, there isn't really a protagonist. The episode really is just about Gotham seeing Batman, but you barely see Batman. You essentially hear a lot about him, and he does a lot off screen. I mean, don't get me wrong, Batman's present in the episode, but it also sacrifices a lead. There's no lead character to follow. You're not really following Batman. You're not even really following Jim Gordon or Harvey Bullock or Joker. It's just Jim, Riddler, Bullock, Penguin, and everyone else in Gotham, like Catwoman, seeing Batman for the first time. That's really all the episode is. And it didn't really capture the fear of Batman as well as it probably tried to. I respect the attempt, but it didn't exactly work in their favor. This movie really captures that, though. Every footstep is really haunting. In his first introduction, where he slowly walks towards the criminals, you can see the criminals starting to get scared. One criminal gets hit by a car because he's so freaked out by the bat signal. The way Batman goes after his enemies, the way he pummels them to a pulp, the way he beats them to a pulp, the amount of aggression he has, the slow footsteps as he slowly intimidates his enemies before beating them up. It all makes Batman feel more than human. It makes him feel supernatural almost. This is something that none of the other films ever really captured. Don't get me wrong, I love some of the other films like Dark Knight, but man, it never captured the fear of Batman the way this film did. But the fear of Batman being captured as well as it was isn't just thanks to the filmmaking, it's also thanks to the... The screenplay for this movie is pretty close to perfection as far as I'm concerned. I adore almost everything about this screenplay. Even the part of the screenplay that most people don't adore, like the third act, I actually really liked. Some people say the third act changed momentum and kind of stopped it, but I would strongly disagree. If anything, I'd say the third act not only kept momentum, but it made the stakes even higher. Like the momentum was very much kept up in the third act. I love what the screenplay does with the characters. The character arc for Batman is genuinely wonderful. In this film, we have the classic idea that Bruce is much better at being Batman than he is at being a human being, than he is at being a Bruce Wayne. In most superhero movies, you have the hero has to learn to become a hero. It's a human learning to become more of a hero. This time, they flip it on its head. It's a hero learning to become more human, learning to become a human being. That's why moments like Gordon telling Batman that he needs to stop and pushing him against the wall, making Batman think he's turned on him means so much. That's why it looks like he's in tears. If you notice in that scene, Batman's face, he kind of starts to well up just a little bit, because in this moment, he thinks that Gordon's betrayed him. When he says, "You too now," his heart's kind of broken, but then he realizes that Gordon hasn't actually turned on him and it's all good. At the end of this film, we have Batman being more of an inspiration, learning that he has to be better. I adore this scene where he's helping someone and they don't want to let him go because he saved them and they see him as a hero now. It's such a wonderful scene. At the beginning of the film, Batman asks if he ever had an effect here, but at the end he realizes he did, but it's not the one he intended. His effect ended up creating people like Riddler. I'm starting to see now, I have had an effect here, but not the one I intended. Vengeance won't change the past, not mine or anyone else's. I have to become more. People need hope, to know someone's out there for them. This city's angry, scarred, like me. Those scars could destroy us, even after the physical wounds have healed. But if we survive them, they can transform us. They can give us the power to endure and the strength to fight.
Jesus, some of these lines are good.
Bruce in this film is a recluse. He's very recluse. People don't see him very often. When they do, they're shocked. And Bruce doesn't care. He would much rather be a terrifying Batman.
You don't care about your family's legacy.
What I'm doing is my family's legacy. If I can't change things here, if I can't have an effect, I don't care what happens to me.
That's all I'm afraid of.
Alfred, stop.
In the film, Bruce only has a few human connections. Alfred, to an extent, Jim Gordon, and Selina Kyle. And we see he's afraid to lose them constantly when Gordon almost pretends to turn on him. We see his fear of losing another human connection. When Alfred nearly dies, we see him being angry and how terrified he is. When Selina leaves, we see he's sad. We see how sad and how it hurts him. Bruce has very little connection, and at the end of the film, he has to become human again. He's been so addicted to the Batman side of himself that he forgot the good that Bruce Wayne can do. That's such a fascinating story and one that hasn't been told in Batman movies yet. Robert Pattinson did a phenomenal job with his acting. You can really see, you can feel every emotion Batman has with just his eyes. A lot of times Batman doesn't even talk, he just kind of looks. But when he makes those looks with his eyes, when he's just analyzing a crime scene, you feel every emotion he's feeling. I also like how in the movie Batman's kind of funny. Overall, the movie's pretty funny, to be honest with you. I found a lot of the humor kind of amusing. I like how Batman's very sarcastic and kind of witty, not in the MCU way where it's annoying, but it kind of naturally fits his character. Jeffrey Wright as Jim Gordon was also fantastic. I wouldn't say he was as good as Gary Oldman, but he was still really good. I loved his relationship with Batman. He was very compelling. You can see he's one of the only good cops in the city, and I think his relationship with Batman was the best in the movies. Don't get me wrong, I love Bale and Oldman, but here they felt more like partners than an actual team, which I appreciated. I really liked Zoe Kravitz as well. I think she might be my favorite Catwoman. It's hard because I really like what Karen Beekendova and Lily Simmons did with the character in Gotham, but man, Zoe Kravitz was really, really good. Beekendova is probably more accurate to the source material, but I think Zoe Kravitz might be the most compelling. She's just trying to help Annika, who gets unfortunately murdered by Falcone during the movie, and then she wants vengeance. We see Selina kind of like Bruce, wanting revenge, being vengeance. She tries to avenge Annika. I love the scene where she tries to kill Annika and Bruce stops her. It is wonderful. I like the story about two broken people connecting and sort of falling in love. It's tragic, heartbreaking, and yet so compelling. Riddler was a phenomenal villain in the movie. Paul Dano, is that how you say his name? Dano? I'm gonna say Dano. Paul Dano did an excellent job. His performance was kind of funny and yet chilling. Like when he calls Coulson a loser, or when he's yelling at him to shut up and he doesn't deserve to live after what he did. At the end, when you see him talking to his community on Instagram, and he's talking to him like a normal content creator, and it's like hilarious. I genuinely laughed out loud in the theater when that happened. I love all the parallels between him and Batman. They both write in their journals. They both write some honestly somewhat disturbing things in them. I love the look of the character. I love that he's an orphan just like Bruce, only he's kind of jealous of Bruce because in his eyes, Bruce wasn't really an orphan. He had everything that he never had. Both were orphans, and both parents obviously died, or something else happened to Riddler's parents that we don't know of and really don't need to know. Still, they're both orphans, but Bruce had everything that Riddler never had, and he's always been jealous of Bruce and the Waynes and their wealth. It's something he never had, and he was left in an orphanage that was described as very hellish and kind of awful. We see the consequences of renewal kind of through Riddler's eyes. We see him and how he handles being lied to his whole life by everyone he feels. We see how much he hates the Waynes and his hatred for them, and how ironically he looks up to Batman. Batman indirectly inspired him to take vengeance. Him and Batman's goals are somewhat alike. Riddler tries to get Falcone the entire movie. He's waiting in his window for Falcone to come out, but he never does. At least until he tricks Batman to bring him out and then shoots him. I love how the final fight isn't with Riddler, but rather Riddler's goons. The aftermath of Riddler. That's the idea of Riddler. He's not a threat physically. The film even addresses this. His intellect is the threat. Instead, it's fighting Riddler's goons after the city's flooded. They now have to deal with the aftermath of Riddler's insanity and his plan and how it kind of worked. He sort of won, but also sort of lost. The third act is about them stopping Riddler's goons from executing Bella Royale, who might be the only Gotham politician who genuinely wants to help the city. The third act in general is wonderful. It has amazing fight choreography, and the momentum is kept up so well. Robert Pattinson's acting's fantastic. I love the small moments. It's such a well-done fight. Maybe my favorite Batman final fight in the movies. Collin Farrell's Penguin, like everyone's been saying, is unrecognizable. Not just his wonderful makeup, but his voice. Collin Farrell does an excellent job. He sounds nothing like actual Collin Farrell. It's insane the work they were able to pull off with him. I also love the Iceberg Lounge. The fight scenes there are a lot of fun, and I just like this movie a lot, man. I love John Tuturro as Falcone. I think he might be my favorite version of Falcone. He's so calm and relaxed, and John Tuturro plays it so well. Even when things don't go Falcone's way, he's just calm and relaxed. I'm pretty sure he only loses his temper once, and it's in a hilarious scene where he yells at one of his guards. Other than that, he's always calm and in control. Even when he's arrested, he's calm and he's in control. It's so fun. He's such a great villain. Rest in peace, Falcone. You will be missed. Even smaller roles like Pete Savage or Bella Royale are all very distinct and memorable. The actual story is genuinely very compelling. It's a movie where you have to pay attention, but it works because of that. This movie earned its runtime. There literally isn't anything that could be cut, with the exception of the Joker scene, but honestly, I like that scene, so I don't need it to be cut. Every single scene is necessary in this movie. There isn't anything that could be cut. Every single scene has purpose and a reason to be there. It's not like the Snyder Cut, where I like that movie, but I could cut probably an hour and 20 minutes out of that movie and nothing would change. I love all the homages in the movie, whether it's Batman's fight at the Iceberg Lounge kind of being like the Dark Knight fight, and reminded me of the Dark Knight fight in Maroni's club in the Dark Knight. I love the Seven references. I love the references to Long Halloween and Ego and Year One. I just love this movie, man. It's so good. I don't have much more to say, man. I just love this movie. It is a genuine masterpiece. The more I watch it, the more I love it, the more awesome things I notice. Please go see it if you haven't already. Go see it in the theaters if you can. It is genuinely phenomenal, I promise. It's the first film in a long time, or at least the first comic book movie in a long time, that I would honestly say is a 10 out of 10. Like, genuinely perfect and flawless. I seriously can't think of a single flaw in this movie. It reminded me of why I love movies. They're an escape. They're an escape for me. It reminded me of why I love Batman. Batman, his world, this movie, it's an escape. It really allowed me to escape my life and get inside a new world, get inside Batman's world. And I really appreciate it for that. It's done it in a way that I haven't really seen any movie do it before. At least on this level for me personally. Anyway, I love this movie. Go see it if you haven't already. Goodbye.